we understand and believe the gospel in our head and our heart, but we experience the gospel in community.
Yeah.
And there are so many moments where we have an opportunity to either accept the gospel in community or share the gospel in community. And what I mean by that, it's not the share the gospel in the evangelistic way. It means grace upon grace upon grace with the people that we're sitting next to.
Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. Well, welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast. I'm here with a good friend, Kristen McDonald. Kristen, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Doing fantastic.
Awesome.
This week, we are talking about a topic that so many of us really need to engage, and it's this idea of our need for community.
Yeah.
And before we jump in, I'll just tell our listeners a little bit about you. I'm here with Kristen, who is, among so many other things, is a wife, is a mother, is a working professional. And so I just want to start out by saying really one of the unsung heroes and rock stars of our community. I know that because my wife carries all those boxes as well. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is fun. And the energy here is amazing. And I'm excited to be here.
So great team.
I'm Kristen. You probably don't know who I am, but I am here. I've been in Raleigh since the summer of 2018 when my job moved us down here, my husband, Tommy, and my daughter, Maggie. And yes,
6 years old.
6 years old, finishing up kindergarten.
That's her daughter, not Tommy.
Yes,
Tommy's older.
yes. Well, sometimes he's 6 years old. Sometimes. Love you, babe. We've been here for since 2018. We go to Hope Community Church here, so we've been a part of the community for over 6 years. And there's a lot to our life and what we do, but we are just so thankful for the community, the people, and the way God has used us and moved through our family over the past few years, and excited for this conversation because it's important. And I think people need this.
Yeah. And, and you mentioned one of the things that the church has provided for you is community. People can find that any other places, but anybody that has a conversation with you for longer than a couple minutes, can see the passion and the drive that you have for helping others, not just finding it yourself, but helping others find community in life. Can you just talk to us for a minute? Was there an event that kind of led you to realizing this is important to you?
Yeah. It was a journey, I would say, not an event.
Okay.
My family and I, Tommy, Maggie, and I walked in and out of Hope stores probably for 4 years without really being intentionally connected. We did a very good job being here on Sundays. We did a very good job serving in Kid City.
Which many families appreciate.
Many families appreciate, and it was awesome. But we didn't have that broader community, within Hope or even the broader, bigger C Church in the Triangle area. So doing life a little bit on our own, but getting fed in a great way. And I know a lot of people do. And like most married people can probably relate to, we were in a really kind of hard season. Tommy and I were, candidly and transparently. And we were literally on a trip in the Outer Banks over 4th of July that we had to leave early to come home and reset because it just was not going well. And we looked at each other and we're like, we got to figure this out, or we're on a path that neither of us want to go down. And so we signed up for this little program called Reengage at Hope. I'd heard about it in Big Service. I had talked to a few people who had done it, and it changed everything for us. For us as a couple, it pointed us to God, what God says about marriage, what he says about us in that marriage. But then individually, I think it just grew our faith and our walk and our journey with God. So all that happened. It was amazing. Our small group that we went through for Reengage actually still meets today. And
so what our listeners might not know, if you go to Reengage, you actually get put kind of in a group. And there's, some guardrails that are put in place and some guidelines that are put in place, but you actually walk through the stuff that you're working through in your marriage
Exactly.
with a group of people.
Yep.
And so you're saying that group kind of stuck together.
Yes.
And after.
Yes. So shout out to our Re-Engage group because they're amazing. And so we went through that, and I came out of that season and that experience with Tommy, which was amazing. We had this couples community, but I looked around me and God was just putting something on my heart around like this community was so important. The people were so important, but there were women around me who aren't married and don't have kids. And so I was like, how do they step into a really meaningful experience like I just went through? And that was the dream that started what I now call Fire and Friendship. My sisters and I kind of talked it out. We dreamed together, and we started this group that started with 12 women in my backyard around literally my fireplace. Yeah. And it's now grown to over 70 women who are part of this group. So it's amazing. God has been moving like crazy, and I'm just so thankful to get to watch it.
So I'd love to. I'll make a note here, and hopefully we'll come back to it. And then, much of this is obviously unscripted, but
yes.
I think it's worth recognizing you guys are having a difficulty in your marriage, but unplanned, like community helped you through that.
100%.
And so I think so many times we don't realize like the loneliness and the isolation that we somehow are prone to as individuals and even as families can actually create an environment where we can't experience the life that we're really created to have, I would argue.
100%. I heard recently that fruit grows in the valley, and like when you walk through those seasons, like you need that community to bear that fruit. So
we've used the word community now a number of times. How would you define community?
Man, I think for a really long time I misunderstood community based off of what culture and the world told me what community was. And I think we could all, being a part of a community means being active and having people around you, and most likely, like culturally, and the world tells us, like surface level relationships are fine and they're okay. But what I learned as I kind of stepped into the Re-Engage process and then visioning and thinking about what Fire and Friendship is what's more important is what God says about community. And so when I think about the essence of what that is, God is community, right? In the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And so it really is this opportunity and this amazing way for us to not only grow relationships, deep relationships with each other, but experience life with each other and experience a deeper closeness with God. It has never been the intention for us to be alone. And I think we're in the most highly connected time of our existence, right? Technology has enabled us to just be constantly connected, but we are so disconnected, right? What would you say community is?
So, and I know a lot of our listeners might not even be Christians, followers of Jesus, or even have a spiritual background, but I think what you alluded to is so important. My belief, I know your belief, the Bible tells us that we are created in the image of God.
Yep.
And the image of God exists as the Father, the Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit that for all eternity past have forever existed in this perfect unified relationship.
Yep.
And so if we're created, in fact, in that image, it would make sense why things wouldn't feel right when we're not connected with others around us in our lives. And so, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as what that means. And then, man, as it relates to the connectivity, there's such a difference between being connected digitally to a group of people, and we can be so misled into thinking we are connected when we get the likes, when we get the comments, when we get a new friend request.
Yep.
But being connected digitally is so different from actually having a true community.
Absolutely.
And you even mentioned, fruit grows in the valley. I noticed what you didn't say when I said what's community. You didn't say, oh, it's this thing where you're together with your friends and everything is always perfect. Because the reality is like community actually can be messy.
Absolutely.
And Let me ask you this before we kind of continue to unpack that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, like, who is your community? Who is your tribe? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, I've got what I would call my people, my 3 to 4 really close friends who know everything there is to know about Kristen McDonald. They are my accountability group. They're my people that I go to when things get hard or when things are good. And so that tribe includes my sisters and my family. I'm very close with them. It includes some of my best girlfriends who actually live in the same neighborhood that I live in. Yeah. So I think something about community that's so important is proximity. Right. Where are you? Where has God put you, and who's around you? And then I kind of broaden out from that. There's a broader group of a village that you have to have around you, right? So for me, specifically in my life, I found community in my daughter's school with some of the moms in the classroom with her. I belong to Burn Boot Camp in Northwest Raleigh, and that has been a huge blessing in friendships and community that we've
heard so
built.
many people say positive things about Burn Boot Camp.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. And they don't pay me to say that. It's great.
You probably pay them to have the ability to.
You tried Burn Boot Camp, didn't you, Jason?
Now, this was brought up in pre-production. It was either Miss Haley or Miss Elena asked, wait, you do Burn Boot Camp, don't you, Jason? And no, for the record, I don't do Burn Boot Camp. And if you're a guy and you do, I applaud you. That's great. My gym time is my alone time. I'm around enough people. So
okay, well, here's one challenge. One time you're going to come to Northwest Burn Boot Camp, and you will experience the community and the amazing experience that they provide.
Messy. It'll be messy, all right.
Oh man, yeah. So I the gym is a huge place for me, and that format of working out has been a huge community builder. And then my husband is actually the more social one in our relationship. I tell everyone
6-year-old Tommy.
Yeah, 6-year-old Tommy could talk to a wall if I made him. But he loves people. He loves to be around people. He is an extrovert in the sense that he gets his energy by being around people. And I am an introvert in the sense that I get my energy by not being with people. Yeah. It exhausts me to be with them. So in our neighborhood, like God placed us in this area that is just surrounded by families and kids and retired families. It's an amazing spot. And, I think we've done a decent job kind of planting roots and trying to love the people around us.
Yeah. I can say for our family, we live, so this was on purpose for us, but we live in a neighborhood. We live in the same neighborhood that my brother and his wife live in, and they have 2 kids. And in that neighborhood also is my wife's brother, his wife, and their 2 kids. And then also my mom lives in that neighborhood as well. And so that's on purpose. And then then right next to my house is a pond, and then there's another home on the other side of the pond. In that house live a family, the Sullivans, Sean and Heather Sullivan, and then they have 2 kids. And it just so happens that their 2 kids are essentially right around the same age as my kids. And they've been there for about 7 years now. And like those 4 families, like when it's time for birthdays, when it's time for holidays, when it's time for let's get together and watch the Super Bowl or watch NC State basketball, football, wrestling. Like that's just what we do. We get together, but it's not just for the good things. I mean, what I can honestly tell you, if it weren't for, and again, you kind of expect it out of your brother and your wife's brother and those families, but if it weren't for the Sullivan crew, I mean, we've done enough life together now. Like if my mom gets sick, they're trying to find a way to jump in and help. And I mean, we're raising 3 kids. We have twins that are 15. We've got another guy who's 12. There are 2 kids between all the practices and all the things. Like I have no idea. My wife and I both work. They both work. I have no idea how we would meet the demands of our schedule. And that even comes down to like, there's some nights where it's like, hey, we know you guys are slammed. We're just going to make enough food for 9. And then so you guys don't have to worry about it, and vice versa.
It's amazing.
And I have no idea how we would make it in life if we just were to pick up and move somewhere else and then try to balance everything. Just the math doesn't work.
Yep. What's incredible, and as you're talking through that, I just think about how God has worked in our life in the sense that he did pick us up and move us to Raleigh. Yeah. And I can't do the math, 2018. And
that's 6 years.
Thank you.
Probably right around the time Maggie was born.
I'm in sales and can't do math very well. She was one. Yes. Good point. So, and like, he put us in this neighborhood that wasn't even finished being built yet. And that's like one of the biggest things about community, like just a small act of, we'll call it obedience, to pick our heads up and see who's around us, to see what intentionality God has already built into who those people are that are walking by your house every single day. Right. Yeah. And that like, you don't even think about, starting a conversation or saying hi to them. So the intentionality that you just described, I think that's rare. Like it's amazing because I think people, we are such an individualistic culture right now that you can drive home, pull in your garage, close the garage, and literally not talk to one person in your day. Right.
And I don't want to like jump back to it too much, but you can do that and then pull your phone out
Absolutely.
and jump on social media and feel like you're actually connecting with people.
Yeah. Yeah. I read or I heard yesterday, the average person in the US touches their phone, I think it's 2,630 times a day.
Wow.
Oh like goodness. What?
Yeah.
It was a wake up call to me because I'm guilty of it. Like we all are, right? Like, I mean, I have moments of bath time with my daughter and I catch myself scrolling on my phone. Yeah. So there is just such a numbness that I think...
That's a good word.
Yeah, like COVID catapulted all of that for all of us because we weren't allowed to be with people. Right. And so it's just put us in this space where we feel okay being truly disconnected in the way that we're made to be, but a false sense of connectivity as you just described via technology.
Hope in Real Life family, I want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that we have for you for your own personal development, spiritual enrichment, and really a way for you to find a bit more hope in real life. We have a tool for you called the Hope in Real Life app. It offers things like parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. If you're looking for it, there's even Bible reading plans in there. And there's a community where you can even share prayer requests and know that someone is praying for you for whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's available right now in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. You can search Hope in Real Life in both stores, or you can use the download link that is in the show notes. Remember, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible even in real life. I talk to a lot of people in what I do that are wrestling with hopelessness, that are wrestling with challenging situations. And I often find myself telling people, like, you're probably not going to be able to get out of this all on your own.
Yeah.
But there is a side to, you are going to have to, like, if you ended up here, you are going to have to put some effort of fight to get yourself out of that situation. And as it relates to community, like, if there really are all these things that are working against us experiencing the community and the belongingness that we actually need in our lives, is something we're actually going to have to fight for.
Oh, yeah.
And be intentional about.
Yes.
And again, when it's so easy to not, I mean, you can go into a restaurant and get food without talking to people now. You can place an order, you can pick it up, you can. And so I think just recognizing that. But what that's done, in my opinion, is it's led even more people to a place of, I don't know that I need community. I mean, you mentioned the introvert side, and I'm kind of this weird blend of extrovert, but then I hit a wall and I'm done. Like, my kids joke around that, like, the person I am sitting with them at 6 a.m. around the table talking through what we're reading in our Bible is very different human than the guy at 9 o'clock when it's time for bed and they haven't gone to bed and they still haven't gone to bed and they still haven't gone to bed. Yep. And so, like, that guy is not the same once he's done. So I should probably digress from that. But
awareness is the first step.
I don't even know where I was going with that. But what would you say to the person that says, you know what, I for whatever reason, and I've got a couple of reasons I'll even ask you about, but if they were to say, I don't know that I need to have that many other people in my life.
You need it even that much more.
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned yet, but a lot of what has sparked the dream in my heart and why my sisters and I decided to create Fire and Friendship as a place for women was really after reading Jenny Allen's Find Your People book, which is an incredible resource for not just women, both women and men, I heard her recently on a podcast talking about community, and she said, one of the guys asked, like, well, this is for women, not for guys. And she's like, no, guys actually need it more because they don't think they need it. So they need it 10 times more. And the first thing she calls out in that book is kind of 3 points. Because I think the biggest detractor from community is the time that the time you have to spend or invest, or the effort, which you just spoke about. And I also think it's because hurt people, right? And I think we all have a story, or maybe 500 stories of communities that we were in that didn't end well, or rough experiences that we went through, or we hurt people and we haven't really dealt with that yet. And so she calls out, I love this. She says at the beginning, these are 3 truths that will never go away. Like, you will hurt people, people will hurt you, God will never hurt you or leave you. And it's kind of this relief when you think about taking that step into being in a community and in relationship with people, and starting to figure out what that could look like for you, to know that, like, man, we're going to mess up. It's going to get messy, but that's part of the blessing of it all. And it's the what you are going to reap from being with these people and being with a community is far outweighs any of the risk of stepping into it. And I would just say, like, it doesn't have to be something really big, you know? I think we sometimes make it way too complicated. Like, it could be as simple as, you spend too much time by yourself, or you don't have that group, and you kind of have a feeling like, maybe I should explore this or see what could come of it. And it could be as simple as, like, asking someone to coffee that you don't know, like getting to know someone that you see every day, and starting to make some connections and threads throughout the different areas of your life that essentially can weave together in an intentional way.
Yeah. And I'm by no means a subject matter expert.
Me neither.
You know, how this works. But what I would say is, what I have learned, and I'll come back to this in a minute because I don't get this right, because I can tell you I do have, whatever buzzword you want to use, a community, a tribe.
Sure.
I've got my people. But that comes at a challenge for me that I'll get to in a minute. But what I've learned is the math doesn't work, but it works out in your favor. And what I mean by that is you could think, well, I don't have time for this community. I don't have time for more people, or I've been hurt enough. I don't want to be hurt anymore. Or, some of us carry around stories that we shouldn't carry. I hurt people.
Yep.
And so therefore I'm not going to do that. And
Sure.
But what I've found is, like, when you actually get connected with people, you're right. You are going to hurt people and they are going to hurt you. But here's the deal. You're going to be hurt no matter what.
Of course.
But somehow when you have other people around you in your life, the math doesn't work. And it actually is easier to walk through it when you've got other people around you. And the very thought, and maybe we've got a listener that needs to hear this right now, but, like, your junk that you're carrying around that you don't think needs to be dumped on anybody else might be the very purpose that somebody else needs to find to have an opportunity to serve you in community. And so there's someone sitting around looking for more purpose in life that will never find that unless they actually see the brokenness that you have in your life, and vice versa.
100%.
And so, again, if we're created in the image of God and we're called to live that out amongst each other, like, we'd have to admit things are going to feel a bit more broken unless we're involved with each other.
100%. And I'll add another layer on top of that. Jenny's newest book is Untangle Your Emotions. So she dives into, like, what are emotions? Why do we have them? Because that's what comes out of all of this, right? Yeah. When we get hurt and when we feel pain, and sometimes we just don't want to feel those things again. And of course we don't want to feel them again. It doesn't.
I'm going to come back to that one in a minute when we talk about guys. So you keep going.
She shared a story that has stuck in my brain ever since, that ties directly to why we need people. And she said at the end of the story, she basically shared, we understand and believe the gospel in our head and our heart, but we experience the gospel in community.
Yeah.
And there are so many moments where we have an opportunity to either accept the gospel in community or share the gospel in community. And what I mean by that, it's not the share the gospel in the evangelistic way. It means grace upon grace
Right.
upon grace
Yeah.
with the people that we're sitting next to. And that like rung in my ears when she said it, because I was like, man, God put this dream on my heart. It's been amazing. Our group meets every other Tuesday. We have awesome meals. Like, we did Chipotle this week. It was great. Like, we had great conversation and it was great dialogue. But like, that's what it's about, right? Like, to your point, people carrying around the stuff that they might have never said to someone else, or they think is too much for God, and it's not. And we're the vehicle that he uses to show that to others. It's amazing.
Hope in Real Life family, I want to pause for a moment and let you know about an opportunity that I believe can help you find a bit more hope in everyday life. Listen, I know a lot of our viewers probably aren't a part of a church, or maybe you gave up on the church a long time ago. And believe me, possibly for good reason. I understand. But I don't want you to miss out on the hope that you can actually experience by journeying alongside of a group of people that really are seeking God's best for their lives. If you are the least bit curious, we try to make this as simple for you as we possibly can. Wherever it is that you digest digital content, podcasts, you can go to the podcast store. You can check it out on YouTube and just search Hope Community Church. You'll be able to find our messages there and check those out. Or if you actually want to tune in during a service time, you can go to gethope.tv at 4:15 or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can tune in at 9:30 or 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, that's at gethope.tv. We hope that you'll take a chance with us and experience what it is God has for you in your life. You're going to find practical messages that will help you find hope in the everyday moments of your life. Hope you'll check it out. I want to go back to your comment about, when Jenny said, what she was talking about is, it's for men too. It's not just for women.
Yeah.
I just want to reckon that we probably got some listeners that are guys, and know we do. One of the reasons why community is hard for guys, especially in certain mixed contexts, is sometimes there is this expectation to talk about things like, what's the word that begins with an F? Feelings?
Oh, yes.
And
Things we go through on a day-to-day basis.
One of those bad words. But the reality is, like, and look, I'm by no means pitching a martyr complex for guys, because at the end of the day, you can carry around whatever martyr complex that you want, and it's not going to help you get better. But man, as men, it's like a lot of us carry this responsibility to lead, to serve, to care for others, to put food on the table, all these things. And then what happens is sometimes if you don't feel appreciated, or heaven forbid, you're not able to actually get those things done, man, the vulnerability it takes to actually voice that, and what many of us are told in life, whether we know it or not, is, hey, that's a feeling, but we don't have time to deal with those, because at the end of the day, it's something else has to be done. And I know this is probably the same for women.
Yeah.
It just so happens I have way more unique experiences as a man than I do as a woman.
Good to know. Good to know.
But I will say this, through counseling,
Yes.
I have learned that if we actually don't not only take time to process our own feelings, but actually are willing to express those, we don't really have an opportunity to figure out, okay, and in my world, and what I believe, we don't really have an opportunity to see how those feelings would direct us to God.
Sure.
Or make it known to other people around us in community, like actually what we need. And the reality is we all need things.
Yep.
We have needs, and our feelings are really just an expression of that need that should hopefully drive us towards loving community, where we're going to experience grace upon grace upon grace, and then help us know what it is that we need from a loving God.
Yeah, it's so good. And you think about it, I think another book shout out I'll call out, John Mark Comer's God Has a Name, changed my life in the last 12 months when I read that book. And what I have started to, I think, accept might be the wrong word, but just understand about God is that he is a God of emotion. Like, he gave us those feelings and emotion, and he felt, right? When Jesus was here and he was in human form, the shortest verse of the Bible, he wept. Like
Right.
Jesus cried. He knows what we're going through. He understands how tough this world can be.
Right.
And I think so many times, even as much time as I try to spend with God or know God more, I can so quickly put him in a box of what he is and how he'll respond. And he's a loving father.
Right.
And you think about your
you
kids.
look at him as maybe this standoffish thing because
Yes.
he's all powerful and because he's all knowing, that there's no emotion, that there's no
100%.
feeling, there's no love.
Yes. And he feels so much, right?
Yeah.
He has joy, he has excitement. He has anger too. Like there's all
Right.
this righteous anger. Like there is so much that we experience because we're made in his image that we don't take to him because we don't think it's relatable, which is the most ridiculous thing to think.
Yeah.
But it's what has shaped our minds for a really long time. And that's been freeing for me to know that God doesn't want just my prayer request. He doesn't want just my time of praise. He wants it all. And that is what we're able to experience when we go to him in community, because it allows us to experience that with each other. Yeah.
Let's do this. You mentioned fire and friendship.
Yes.
I'd love for you just to take a moment, and because I've had some of these conversations with you and your sisters, I would love for you just take a moment, just kind of cast a vision for what do you want to see fire and friendship become? And maybe we've got a listener that if there's some here in the Triangle, maybe there's an opportunity to jump in, or maybe they're listening from somewhere else. Maybe it kind of sparks an idea for them to jump out on a limb and give something a shot themselves.
I love it. So, yeah. So fire and friendship essentially is, you could call it a large, small group, but it is a gathering of women who meet during what we call sessions or sprints. We just finished up our spring session this past Tuesday. And we're going to kick back another one kickstart another one in the fall, which we're very excited about. And the dream behind Fire and Friendship was giving space for women to build community with one another and seek God and seek Jesus as we have these conversations. And so it's been incredible to watch how God has moved this thing. It's been about a year and a half in terms of, from dream in heart to actually seeing women show up to the growth that we've seen. But today we have one large group meeting for Fire and Friendship. And it's getting pretty large. Like I said, it's 70 women are in the group, and it's amazing. And if they all showed up, this is my, dreamer mentality. My older sister always jokes, I'm the balloon and she's the weight, because she has to keep me from, just dreaming too big sometimes. So if all 70 women showed up to a house one day, it would be interesting, but we'd make it work. What we're really looking for right now, what we're praying about to God is hey, God, my dream that you've put on my heart is that there are multiple groups of Fire and Friendship meeting around the Triangle. I won't even limit it, around the country, right? Going through whatever the study is that we're working on together. And there's opportunities to bring those groups together throughout those sessions. So right now, there's a couple ways to get plugged in. We're looking for leaders. If you've got a group and you are struggling for content or structure, it feels burdensome. I'd love to talk to you about either how we can encourage you with that group, or how we can equip you with some of the stuff that we're doing. And if you want to just get plugged in to learn more about the existing group that is already there, we would love to hear from you too. So, I've got a big dream for Fire and Friendship, but it's ultimately what God wants to do with it. So we'll see what doors he opens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know we're running up on time.
Yeah.
There's I made a couple of notes here, and then you can correct me.
Okay.
But if I had to sum up what I've heard just in our conversation here, when it comes to community, I wrote, one, we were created for it. Mm-hmm. And so just recognizing without it in our lives, we're not going to experience life the way that we could, and ultimately the way that we were created to experience life. Secondly, we've got to be intentional, and we got to fight for it. And that could be as simple as going to burn boot camp, which I might be there one time, but other than that, I won't be. It's got to be, it could be in your kid's school. It could be as simple as growing where you're planted.
Yep.
You're in a neighborhood. What are your neighbors up to? Check in on them, reach out to them and see. So we've got to be intentional. And then the last one, you didn't say it this way, but I just said, bring your mess.
Yeah.
Like, don't go into community expecting to be perfect. Certainly don't go into it expecting it to be perfect. I've heard people say, if you're expecting to find a perfect community, don't show up because you'll mess it up.
Yep.
So let's make sure, remember we're created for it. We got to be intentional. We got to fight for it. The world's fighting against it. And we got to be willing to bring our mess to it if we're really going to experience everything.
Good job, Jason. That was a good summary.
Okay.
Good
All right.
summary.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we had this talk. Let me ask you this as we wrap up. What are you hopeful for? I mean, the podcast is called Hope in Real Life. For you, Kristen McDonald, this doesn't have to be about community, fire, and friendship. The broad scheme of life right now, what are you hopeful for in the next 5 years?
We started talking about this before we started talking officially. God is on the move. Like, I don't say that to like sound like someone who over rotates, but like, I just believe we are in such a unique time. And he is moving and I'm excited. I want to be a part of that journey. Yeah. And he is hope, right? And so if he is moving, sign me up and let's figure out where he wants us to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this was fun.
Absolutely.
And your team is amazing, by the way. Shout out to the team.
Yeah, they 100% are. Everything that we heard about, from Jenny Allen's book to John Mark Comer's book to Burn Boot Camp to Fire and Friendship, How to Contact You, we'll put all that in the show notes. And listen, if you as a listener know someone who is living life in isolation right now, let me encourage you, share this with them. You never know the value that you can bring to somebody else by just sharing with them a simple conversation that can maybe help them take a life-giving step towards hope that we all know that they need. Kristen, thank you again for being here with us. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in with us and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Let's keep sharing hope. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.